So, the electronic robots who blew up in their movie, but not really, because it wasn't them. These guys are a staple in electronic music, and pretty much everyone knows about them by now, even your pets. They've had a long history in their careers, with releasing music sparsely throughout the decades, slowing down entirely after 2008, but resurfacing in 2010 to do the film soundtrack for the movie Tron Legacy, but that was commissioned by Disney, and with no proper solo studio album in sight, fans were eager to hear the duo in a new sound this time around, and see how they would approach the new decade in their own way, without the brand deals. And with their history of genre-bending albums, people weren't sure if Daft Punk would even drop anything anytime soon, or if they still had that spark. But after a crazy career of ups and downs, the boys would finally come back together after 8 years to get back into the studio, put together their Avengers team of music, and do their thing one more time, and deliver what would be their final studio album, Random Access Memories. There's a lot to unpack on here. The boys would go all out for this release, from the development to the promotion and everything in between. It's honestly insane. And in this video, we're going to be diving head first into this beast of a project, and access some of its cool and weird secrets. There's some crazy stuff in here, I'm sure you'll enjoy it. And jeez, look at that video length! So grab something to eat, cause in this video, we're gonna be going into the swan song of Daft Punk records, uncover its secrets, and get the full picture of Random Access Memories, Daft Punk's final studio album. And as always, leave a like if you're excited. Now, before we get into the album, we need to talk about something the duo would partake in a couple years earlier, as not only was it crazy requested, but it's also very important to the direction they would go in this time around for RAM. No, I'm not talking about those expensive collab bear brick figures. I'm talking about the aptly titled Tron Legacy soundtrack. Daft Punk were approached by the movie's director Joseph Kosinski and his music supervisor Jason Bentley in 2008. They tried to reach them in 2007, but were unavailable as they were still in the midst of their Alive tour. But after finishing their tour and agreeing to do the film, the boys would get to work. When Joseph was asked back at Comic-Con in 2009 why he wanted to work with Daft Punk, he replied with, quote, "How could you not at least go to those guys?" Which, that's fair. The duo were equipped with an 85-piece orchestra to do their stuff, with it all being recorded at the Air Lyndhurst Studios in London, England, which, fun fact, the company Air, Associated Independent Recording, was co-founded by a Sir George Martin, which, if you don't know him, was the main producer for the Beatles and their catalog, often referred to as the fifth Beatle. Daft Punk wanted to really tread new waters this time around, opting for a blend of washy and dramatic orchestral pieces mixed with their signature electronic sound. Manuel stating that, quote, "There was no way we were going to do the soundtrack with 2 synths and a drum machine." Babies. The score would also be done simultaneously, as in being recorded while the movie was being filmed. In general, companies usually do the film score after filming, so that the composer has the finished stuff to work with, but if you do it while filming, you can really attempt to tie the song to the scene together, but that just takes a bit longer. The movie would premiere first in Tokyo on November 30th in 2010, and later releasing in theaters in December 17th in North America. The Japanese just stay winning. I remember Disney was pushing this movie like crazy when it came out, with tons of merch and promo. They even had the subsection dedicated to it at Shanghai Disney World with light cycle rides. On release, the movie got pretty mixed reviews, with people enjoying the visuals, production, and soundtrack, but criticizing the characters, some of the cast choices, and the story. It made $400 million though, so who cares? The film was also nominated for Best Sound Editing at the Oscars, but got beat out by Inception, which, I mean, come on. The movie would also develop a sort of cult following over the years, and because of that, now has a sequel in the works. But back to the music. The soundtrack would release standalone on December 3rd in 2010, and on release was met with really good reviews, and for their first film score, was really good. Reviewers pointing out and praising the seamless blend of orchestral and electronic music heard on this, as well as enjoying things such as texture, ambience, and mood set by the duo with their new instrumental palette. Others pointing out that the duo doing the soundtrack to a Tron movie seemed like a no-brainer. They released one single from the soundtrack, being Derezed, on December 8th of 2010, 5 days after the release of the album, with a video of the boys playing a Derezed light cycle game at Flynn's Arcade. If they didn't get the high score, can you even call it your song? This song is so fire, dude. From the video to the adrenaline feeling of the track, it's freaking awesome. I just wish it was a bit longer though. Luckily, YouTube's got me. For me, I enjoy the soundtrack. I think it's really nice. And a good bit of these songs can honestly stand on their own, but I'm not like super crazy about it or anything. At the end of the day, it is a soundtrack to a film, and I feel like some of the songs kind of lose their thump when not accompanied by anything. In the context of the movie, they're really cool, but I can't imagine anybody listening to recognize it on their way to school or anything, unless you're trying to get amped or something. The soundtrack would go on to be certified gold by the RIAA, and the songs from it would be used in all sorts of media, from TV shows and other movies, such as Game of Thrones to Resident Evil, just in trailers though. A piece of the song The Game Is Change was used in the 2014 Olympics. Kid Cudi and Kanye West would sample the track The Son of Flynn for a song they recorded together back in 2013 called Can't Look in My Eyes, and although not released this way, the song would go through some changes, removing Kanye and changing the sample, turning into Cudi's song Too Bad I Have to Destroy You Now off his album in 2014. There was also an unreleased track called Computerized featuring Jay-Z made around the same time and was going to be used in promo, but was scrapped as they thought the lyrics didn't really match with the movie and would later turn into The Son of Flynn instead. You can still find the original online though. And with that, I think it's time for... Wait, what is that? No. Another remix album. Yep, even the movies aren't immune to the plague of the remix. And releasing in 2011 was the greenly titled Tron Legacy Reconfigured, with this being manned by Disney, which reportedly had no involvement from the duo, according to their former manager. He even went as far as to write an open letter to Disney, complaining about it. Now that's good management. There's a bunch of names on here, new and old, some even going on to have huge upcoming years, from the Glitch Mob, the Crystal Method, M83, Com Trues, Boys Noise, and Avicii. And on the Australian release, they even added a Tame Impala remix. But on release, this thing was met with really mixed reviews, with people stating that it just sounded like a cash grab by Disney more than anything else. Nothing offensively bad, but just run-of-the-mill remixes. Now, contrary to my intro, I must be the only one, because surprise, I actually don't mind this at all. Like, it's nothing crazy or anything, but I like a lot of the songs on here. I agree, some of the remixes can come off as pretty lifeless, but the ones that take the original and turn it into something new are really awesome, with my absolute favorite, even when I first heard it back then, being the Solar Sailor remix by Pretty Lights. Just what he did to that song, dude, holy smokes. But I will say that I think this album has an overall direction to it, with each song taking the original orchestral epic and attempting to turn it into an electronic epic. Whether they succeed on that is up to you. And now, with all that out of the way, you're probably thinking, hey, I clicked on this video expecting this album. What gives, Black and White Man? But I should mention again that the reason this thing was pretty important is because in doing this soundtrack, Daft Punk were exposed to and got inspired by a new palette of sound, that being live instrumentation. And although they were already experimenting with this idea, and were doing demos and such after Human After All, doing this soundtrack would make them double down on this idea and make what they referred to as, quote, a completely new sonic scape. Production started all the way back in 2008 with the just mentioned demos, but put them on hold after agreeing to do Tron. After that, they came back and really re-evaluated the direction they wanted to go with their music, getting a bit tired of sampling and looping, opting to work heavily with live musicians instead, with Thomas stating that they, quote, wanted to do what they did with drum machines and samplers, but with people. In the end, there were only 2 samples on the project, both in the closing track. While recording this, Thomas stated that with the music on the radio now, and with the unlimited space of technology at our fingertips, they felt like that wasn't being used to its fullest potential, and the quality of music nowadays was starting to diminish. In a world of cut and paste electronic and radio music, Daft Punk's goal was to try and make EDM feel more human again, and try to show that even in the medium, you can still do more than just electronic synths and boops, and really step outside your comfort zone to try something new. Unlike their last 3 projects, which were all done at their home, this album was recorded over multiple studios, from Paris to New York to Los Angeles. The album acts as a sort of tribute piece to, and is inspired by the music the boys grew up on, being in the 70s and 80s, and serve as a love letter to those times in culture and in music. Mainly seen as a disco record, the album also includes elements of pop and soft rock, even adding elements of film score. I wonder where that came from. Daft Punk would record the album in secret and enlist the help of multiple people, from old friends to new collaborators spanning multiple decades, from Julian Casablancas from The Strokes to Pharrell Williams to Nile Rodgers. Electronic pioneer Giovanni Giorgio was called to do a song, but instead of producing any music, he would just sit and talk about his life, and when he finished, he had no idea what they wanted to use it for, and was pretty confused, but was curious to see what would come from it. Apparently, the boys wanted to do a song with him since Tron, but nothing ever came out of it. The promotion of this thing was also insane, with the initial announcement that Daft Punk would release this under Columbia Records for a 1-album deal, with billboards and posters being put up across cities in the US. Thomas stating in an interview that signing with Columbia this time around just felt like, for the theme of the album, the right thing to do, especially with their long history of music. 2013 2013 was when things really started going. A 15-second teaser on SNL just showing the duo's logo, and another with the album title being crushed by the helmets was enough to send people into a frenzy. But shortly later, they would do another teaser for Coachella, this one being the now infamous clip of Pharrell and Nile Rodgers jamming with Daft Punk to their hit song Get Lucky, which wasn't out yet. They would show this again on SNL the next day, but this time removing the collaborators at the end. The cover art for this is the only one not to feature their signature word mark, instead opting for their helmets in the center, with the title of the album written in the top left, inspired by Michael Jackson's Thriller. Pretty much everything around this time was trying to be done in secret. They also didn't show the track list to online retailers, instead opting to show the track list on Columbia's Vine account. What a timeless move. They would also let fans stream the full album for free on iTunes on release day. Fans would record it and cut parts where they thought the songs would stop and start and have that as their bootleg album. Fun times. Of course, it also spawned the lead and smash hit single Get Lucky, releasing on April 19th in 2013, which just dominated that year. The song was used in pretty much all the promo leading up to the record, and would peak at number 2 on the Hot 100, just shy from number 1, under Robin Thicke's Blurred Lines. His song ended up resulting in a bunch of legal problems and controversies at the time, but Pharrell being on the number 1 and number 2 song in the world during that time, he was definitely feeling good for a bit. But yeah, this song was everywhere. I remember sitting in college and hearing this over the radio at my campus store, and just thinking, wow, I am so happy for them. The song also leaked a couple days before it came out, not enough to do any damage, but just thought I'd throw that in somewhere. And after a long wait, the album would release on May 17th in 2013 and received widespread critical and fan acclaim across the board. Critics praising the use of instrumentation, diversity, and the production on here, with the songs being a real shift in their sound. Some also calling it their most personal work to date, which makes sense as it calls back to pretty much all their influences and encapsulates this era in one complete project, both in and outside the music. I think they have another album that's kind of personal, but it's just not as in your face. But not without its criticisms. Some critics were quick to note that some of the songs sounded a bit tedious and self-indulgent at times, especially the longer songs with not enough ideas to really bounce around and warrant some of the runtimes. As well, they would state that even with all this experience, a lot of the songs tend to sound a little less complex than one would hope for, with the names on here. The album would appear on NME's 500 Greatest Albums of All Time list at number 497. It would debut at number 1 on the charts all over the globe, some notable ones being a first in France and North America. A year later, it would go on to be certified platinum by the RIAA and win numerous Grammy Awards, even earning them the Grammy for Album of the Year. This really is a celebration record, as not only does it chronicle electronics roots, it also covers their own roots all the way to their collaborators. DJ Falcon, who has been with them since the beginning, would help them with the synths for Contact. Todd Edwards, who was featured on Fragments of Time, if that name sounds familiar, is also the singer for the goated Daft Punk song Face to Face on Discovery. And Chili Gonzalez, who helped with tracks 1 and 4, and Pharrell, both worked with Daft Punk in their past to do songs for their remix album Daft Club back in 03. Touch reportedly has 250 individual tracks to it, aka unique elements to it, and Doing It Right was the last track to be recorded for the album, which technically means this is the last Daft Punk track ever to be recorded, which is really trippy. Yeah, this thing celebrates a lot, but because of that, I do have a personal vendetta against this thing, and that being, why the f isn't Roman Anthony on this at all? If you don't know him, he's the singer on the duo songs One More Time and Too Long off Discovery. He also did another cover of One More Time for Daft Club. You'd think the guy who sang one of your biggest songs would have been on this in some way, but I guess not. He passed away a little over a week before the album would come out, but considering how long it was in development for, I'm sure they had time to get him on it if they really wanted him. Maybe they had a falling out or schedules didn't match up or something, but I don't know. Just seems like a missed opportunity to me. Now, if you're like me back in 2013 when I was just a stinky kid and heard this for the first time, your initial reaction after finishing Contact would have been, wait a second, this isn't an electro album. And yeah, you'd be kinda right, as this album stems away from an electronic bass and favors more of a soft rock disco bass and builds on that. For me, I liked it when it came out, but I remember I wasn't the hugest fan of it, as I wasn't really into the slower tone of it all. I listened to way too much Instant Crush though. But now, looking back, there's still 1 or 2 songs that are still anime, but yeah, this album is great. It's literally art. It really is a celebration of music, as you can really feel that they were trying to capture this timeless aspect of a record in an album, which I absolutely love. From the tone-setting title track to the cinema-sounding elements on Touch and Beyond, and the dance jams like Get Lucky and Lose Yourself to Dance, like it's a nice package. And before I go any further, I want to stress, like I always do, that if you love or hate this album, that's totally fine. And you don't have to like everything from your favorite artist or record either, if you really don't. There's a debate going on about which punk record is the best between this and Discovery. Sorry, Alive fans. And while debating about this stuff is hella fun, like I said in the Discovery video, they both do different things. Like they're not even in the same boat sonically. Personally, I prefer Discovery because they're just the electronic guys for me, and for a lot of others. But that doesn't take away anything from this album either. Cause at the same time, I also recognize there's a couple duds on here. One for me personally being Doing It Right featuring Panda Bear. What? Yeah, I get it. It's just me. How could I? I don't hate it. I like the ideas on it, and it's not even the repeating vocals that bother me either. The main thing is that overall, it just sounds so boring to me. Like, I know it's done on purpose, and that's fine, but I just wish they changed up the progression at least once, at least for me. And Panda's vocals are just so cheesy to me. And even on Lose Yourself, not that one, I don't know, something about Pharrell's refrain, the way he says it, just comes off a little forced or fake, like he's really straining it. I don't get this feeling with Get Lucky at all, and it's probably just me again. Everything else is fire though. Although, I feel like they could have faded it around the 4-minute mark, or switched up the beat for the last minute, akin to Harder Better. Yeah, everyone's a critic, I know. But these are just my personal qualms with the record. It's not law or anything. In Japan, they released a bonus track for the album called Horizon, and later on, Columbia would release a limited edition box set with a new remix of Get Lucky made by the boys, which clocks in at a little over 10 minutes. The album version was not long enough. This deluxe set also has a bunch of other goodies in it, but I'll save talking about this for a future video. This really was a crazy and brilliant creative process, and if you want to get a little more clear look into their mindset and vision for the album, I would recommend the interviews they did with Zane Lowe and Pete Tong on BBC Radio back in 2013, as they really go into the concept and mind state for this thing, as well as hearing some classic punk tunes throughout the convo. Can you imagine being a global music icon and nobody knowing what the fuck you look like? That's hilarious. Now it's normal to have faceless artists across multiple genres, keeping that anonymity to them. But back then, that wasn't really the case. Daft Punk are true pioneers to electronic music, among others, and helped pave the way for multiple artists that would go on and inspire for years to come. But this album here was made to sort of reflect the time before them and their forefathers, who helped shape disco and electronic music for the future, as well as adding a human aspect to their music not really seen before, celebrating their influences from the songs to the packaging, the way they would talk about this album back then. It's clear they definitely saw this as an ending piece, as it sort of represents everything about them and what they came to do, and for that, it makes sense this album continues to be celebrated even after all these years. At the end of the day, this album really wanted to push what technology could do in the landscape that we're in now, and I think they succeeded with that. It's clear to see why so many artists look up to them and respect them so much, and now with their departure, hopefully the legacy of Daft Punk will continue to live on in fans and artists for years to come. And now Stardust will come back, yes? So yeah, what do you guys think of Random Access Memories? And even the Tron soundtrack? Are these albums engraved in your motherboards, or are they de-resed out of your memory? Leave a comment, I'd love to know. And subscribe if you enjoyed it. And with that, I think we can finally close the book on our Daft Punk saga, and properly say goodbye to the robots that changed electronic music forever. Now go live life and play golf or something. On behalf of the people watching, thanks for everything guys, and thanks to you for watching. And now I can finally relax with no more Daft Punk videos to do. My search history could use a break. But, and I did say this in the last video, if you guys are interested, if this video gets 1,500 likes, I will do a video covering Justice and their 2007 Electro Revolution album Cross sometime in the future. That should be fun. But yep, that's it. Cue the outro again for the 4th time. I think I just need to move to Japan at this point. Seems like that's the only way to get that sweet Daft Punk memorabilia. But seriously, thank you all so much for watching this series covering the Daft Punk discography. I had fun making it, and I'm glad you guys enjoyed watching it. I guess I'll just end this by, saying leave your favorite Daft Punk song in the comments. I'd love to know. And feel free to share these punk videos, or I guess any of my videos, anywhere you think people would enjoy them. Either on Reddit, or Facebook, or Discord, Twitter, wherever you share your stuff. And with that, I am out of here. See ya!